In the beginning, before the worlds were fully shaped, and long before Ragnarok, the gods of Asgard received a terrible prophecy. The Norns, the weavers of fate, foretold that Loki, the trickster god, would father 3 monstrous children who would bring about the end of the gods. These 3 children were Jormungandr, the great serpent that would one day encircle the world; Hel, the ruler of the underworld, who would govern over the dead; Fenrir, the mighty wolf, destined to grow beyond measure and devour the All-Father; Odin himself. When the gods learned of this prophecy, they were filled with fear. They knew they could not allow these creatures to roam freely, for their fates were tied to the destruction of the world. So, they sought to contain them before it was too late. Jormungandr was thrown into the depths of the ocean, where he would grow until he encircled the world. Hel was cast into the underworld and given dominion over the dead, but Fenrir was different. At first, the gods tried to control Fenrir. They brought him to Asgard and raised him among themselves, hoping to keep him under watchful eyes. The wolf pup grew quickly, faster and stronger than any beast the gods had ever seen. His fur was thick and black as night, his eyes burned with an unnatural fire, and his jaws could crush even the strongest shields. Only one among the gods was brave enough to approach him, Tyr, the god of war and justice. It was Tyr who fed Fenrir, played with him, and trained him, earning the wolf's trust. But as time passed, Fenrir's size and power became alarming. He towered over the tallest of gods, his claws could carve through mountains, and his hunger seemed insatiable. The gods knew that if the prophecy was true, Fenrir would one day turn against them. Fearful of his strength, they devised a plan to bind him before he became too powerful to stop. The gods first tried to chain Fenrir with Leidinga, a mighty iron fetter. They challenged him to test his strength, claiming it was a simple game. The wolf, proud and confident, allowed them to bind him, then with a single flex of his muscles, snapped the chains as if they were twigs. Next, they forged an even stronger chain, Dromi, made from the strongest iron in all the realms. They once again convinced Fenrir to test himself against it. He let them bind him, then with a powerful growl, shattered the fetters into pieces. The gods now realized that no ordinary metal could hold Fenrir. If they were to contain him, they would need something far beyond mere strength. Odin, determined to stop the beast, sent messengers to Svartalfheim, the realm of the dwarfs, the greatest smiths in all of existence. There, the dwarfs crafted a magical binding, unlike anything seen before. They named it Gleipnir, and it was no ordinary chain. It was light as a ribbon, yet stronger than the mightiest iron. It was woven from the sound of a cat's footsteps, the beard of a woman, the roots of a mountain, the breath of a fish, the spittle of a bird. These were things that did not seem to exist, and yet the dwarfs had gathered them, weaving them into a bond that could not be broken. The gods returned to Fenrir and proposed another game. They claimed Gleipnir was weak and flimsy and challenged him to break free from it, but Fenrir had grown wise. He had escaped twice before, but now he saw the fear in their eyes. He knew there was deception in their words. Fenrir was no fool. He did not fear chains, but he feared trickery. "I will let you bind me," Fenrir growled, "but only if one of you places your hand in my mouth as a sign of good faith. If you have no deceit in your hearts, you have nothing to fear." The gods hesitated. None of them dared risk their hand, for they knew Fenrir would never be freed, but Tyr, who had once cared for the wolf, who had fed him and gained his trust, stepped forward. Without hesitation, he placed his right hand into the wolf's massive jaws. The gods quickly wrapped Gleipnir around Fenrir's legs, neck, and body. He strained, he growled, he thrashed with all his might, but the ribbon did not break, realizing he had been tricked. Fenrir let out a roar that shook Asgard. He clenched his jaws shut, biting Tyr's hand off at the wrist. Blood poured from Tyr's wound, but he did not cry out. He had known this would be the price, and he had accepted it. Bound and betrayed, Fenrir howled in rage, swearing vengeance upon the gods. The gods dragged Fenrir far away to a desolate island. They anchored Gleipnir to a great boulder and drove a sword into his jaws, forcing them open so he could not bite. Foam and venom dripped from his mouth, forming a great river, but Fenrir did not die. He lay there, imprisoned, his rage growing with every passing day, and the gods knew this was only a temporary victory, for the prophecy had not been undone. Ragnarok would come, and when it did, Fenrir would break free. He would grow larger than the sky itself, and he would charge into battle, seeking the one who had betrayed him the most, Odin. When the end of time arrives, the sky will shatter, and Fenrir will snap Gleipnir as if it were nothing. He will break free and join the forces of chaos, led by his father, Loki. As Asgard burns, Fenrir will seek out Odin, and on the battlefield of Vigrid, the two will meet at last. Odin, wielding Gungnir, will strike first. He will fight with all his might, but the prophecy will not be denied. Fenrir will open his great jaws and swallow Odin whole, but vengeance will be swift. Odin's son, Vidar, will step forward, placing his enchanted boot inside the wolf's lower jaw. With all his strength, he will tear Fenrir's mouth apart, finally slaying the beast. Yet, the death of Odin, the loss of the All-Father, will mark the true beginning of the end. The tale of Odin and Fenrir is one of fate, fear, and betrayal. It carries several profound lessons that remain relevant even today. The gods feared Fenrir because of the prophecy, but in their attempt to control and imprison him, they turned him into the monster they feared. Had they treated him with fairness instead of deceit, the prophecy might have played out differently. Fear can lead to poor decisions that make things worse. When we act out of fear, we may push others away or even create our own downfall. Instead of fearing the future, we should seek to understand and face challenges with wisdom, not paranoia. The gods broke Fenrir's trust, and in return, he swore vengeance. The moment Tyr placed his hand in Fenrir's mouth, he knew that breaking his promise would cost him dearly, and it did. Trust, once broken, is hard to repair. Deception has consequences, even if it seems like the easiest solution at the time. If we make promises, we must honor them, or risk losing the faith of those around us. Odin and the gods did everything they could to prevent the prophecy of Ragnarok, but their actions only made it more certain. Instead of preventing the end, they sealed their own fate. Some things in life are beyond our control. We must learn to adapt, not fight destiny. Trying too hard to avoid a feared outcome can sometimes bring it to life, instead of resisting change. We should focus on preparing for it wisely. Fenrir was immensely powerful, but he was not evil by nature. He only turned against the gods because they feared him and sought to imprison him. If they had tried to guide and understand him, things might have been different. Misunderstanding leads to conflict. Instead of fearing others, we should seek understanding and balance. Power without control is dangerous, but power without guidance can be even worse. We should not judge people only by their potential danger, but by their actions and choices. Odin and the gods had to make a difficult decision. They chose to sacrifice Fenrir's freedom to protect the world. Tyr, too, lost his hand for the greater good. Leadership often requires sacrifices. Difficult choices are part of leadership. Sometimes, no option is perfect. True leaders take responsibility for their actions, even when they are painful. Sacrifice is often necessary to protect something greater, but it must be made wisely. Final thoughts: the tragic cycle of fear and fate. The story of Odin and Fenrir is ultimately tragic. The gods, in their fear, created their own doom. Their actions ensured that Fenrir would become their greatest enemy, rather than an ally. It teaches us that small blue diamond fear leads to mistakes, small blue diamond betrayal leads to vengeance, small blue diamond no one can escape fate, small blue diamond power must be guided with wisdom, small blue diamond true leadership requires sacrifice. If the gods had chosen trust over fear, wisdom over control, and understanding over betrayal, perhaps the world's fate could have been different. What do you think? Could the gods have changed their destiny?